Hi, and you're very welcome to episode 5 of the Leitrim GAA podcast here on Leitrim Daily in association with Leitrim GAA. Of course, we must remind you about a few things that are going on in the county. The Supporters Club in one, we'll talk about that in a little bit of time. And also, winaweding.ie is coming to an end in the coming weeks with more about how you can win yourself a wedding worth €25,000. My name is Breifne, and today I am joined once again by former county player and Connacht champion Aidan Rooney. Aidan, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Breifne. Great to be here again.
I should probably throw in their current St. Mary's football manager in neighbouring Sligo, where of course you're now resident. We will hear from you later on in the show, maybe a little bit about that when we're chatting to some of our guests and the parallels that it draws with our club championships and club leagues, which of course we were lucky enough to receive the fixtures of. Everything kicking off, not this weekend, but in 8-9 days' time. We'll have games back in the county again at adult level. Of course, a couple of juvenile games already taking place. What's it been like in your experience? Has football started where you are in Sligo yet, Aidan?
Yeah, we're starting this weekend. We've a warm-up competition this weekend. We have a Division 1 game the following weekend. So, yeah, we're back into full action. And Sligo have full leagues. Well, they're half leagues, but relegation from them and promotion from them. So Sligo have gone a little step further, I suppose, than Leitrim in regard. They're putting emphasis on the league football as well, which is good. Unless you have a lot of county players like we have, it's not as good. But it's up and running. Look, Breifne, it's great. Lads are back out training. We think we have 12 or 13 sessions on at this stage now over a couple of weeks, and the buoyancy around the place is fantastic. It's just great to see people out playing football again in sport. And like St. Mary's down here in Sligo, sure, like every club, it's inundated with teams, from under 8, under 10, right the whole way up to senior adults. Ladies and men and hurling. It's great.
Yeah, we're going to hear more about that and the parallels that draws here in the county of Leitrim with current senior club champion, Captain Daniel Beck. He'll be with us later on in the show. We'll also hear from Declan Bohan, county secretary, about the fixture list. We'll go through some of the fixtures, but also just the broader dates and schedules for the next 6 weeks or so as the games hot up at senior level and general adult level around the county. First, let's take a little bit of a look back at, I suppose, what can only really be described as a disappointing league season for our hurlers and our footballers. Both sides played 3 games, both sides 3 defeats. It doesn't really get much worse than that, Aidan.
It's disappointing, Breifne. It's we would have looked forward to the possibility of promotion back to Division 3. I think every county in the group, in football in particular, would have looked at this as a real opportunity to kind of to reinstate themselves in Division 3. And I suppose Terry would have looked at it in that way. But look, we all knew the lockdown would have different effects on different teams. There was nobody sure what it'd be like. I think there was definitely some reservation around the place as to how much work teams had done, and nobody could quantify it exactly. But I think, to be fair, actually, I know Leitrim showed a great kick in the last game against Antrim, which was great to see that. But unfortunately, all the damage was done at that stage, and the games were, very close for long periods of the games, and then we ran out of steam. So look, there's no point in putting glass on it. It's disappointing because it was an opportunity missed. Like next year, we're going to be back into a Division 4 where there's 8 teams and we have to win, 5 out of our 7 games to get promoted, and we're back into the same. This year was probably an opportunity to have a short, sharp jab at it and get out. But maybe look at in hindsight, maybe at the moment, we need to grow back into that status that we've been in the last couple of years. Terry came in and, got the bounce, got a great start and got the team moving, got promoted. Maybe we're back to that again. Just need to start, take a breath, have a look at our club championships this year again and, go at it again and try and rebuild and move forward. But like the main thing here, is positivity. We have to be positive about this, like it is where it is at the moment. But in football and hurling and any other team sport, you're only as good as your last game. And if your last game is a good one, and that's right, be looking at it from the glass half full perspective. There's a lot of realism out there at the moment about, all the negatives around the places regarding our population. And that's always been the case. You know, I know there was reference made to, you know, maybe the club standard in the county, and you know, as you know, we'll have a chat with Danny later on, but I don't believe that's the case. You know, I think, you know, the standard in the county is as good as any county around the place, where they're top teams. You know, our top teams are top teams, and they're very well prepared and they work very well. So look, there's lots of, I suppose, scope for negativity, but you know, there's no point in negativity, because we have to move forward. And I think for the guys that are on the county panel at the moment, it's a very, I suppose, hard place to be. Like, you're several weeks away from your Connacht Championship game against Sligo or Mayo. You know, you're in a spot now where I suppose you've no other game in there. You know, you've no other competitive action in between. It's hard to keep focus. It's hard to keep, you know, the preparation going at the level required to compete against, you know, a team in a semi-final of a Connacht Championship. So I suppose, from Terry's point of view, or from the management of the county team's point of view, you know, keeping that bubble afloat at the minute, and maybe the Antrim finale was something that to give them some buoyancy going into their preparations.
Yeah, well, we talked about that with Evan Sweeney in the show last week, and he was one of a couple of cameos that came in and to really impress in the last 20 minutes of that game. In terms of positives, that 20 minutes aside, there were plenty of other periods in the footballers, at least, that had 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, where we showed we were as good as anybody in the division. We just couldn't string it together for 70 minutes.
Yeah, I think, look, I suppose I was at the Sligo game, obviously, down here. There's nothing in the teams. There was nothing in the teams, to be honest. You know, the game was very, very tight all through. And then there was a couple, I suppose, Aidan Flynn sending off, and Sligo just looked at it, having a bit more legs on that day at the end of the game. But it's easy when you're, I suppose, you're a man up. So look, at the reality, when you go into the league, there was going to be nothing in the teams, very little, and it was going to be small margins that made the difference. And maybe Leitrim's fitness margins were the difference. You know, I don't know. It's very hard to put a finger on it. You know, momentum is a great thing as well. You know, we didn't get momentum at any stage. You know, we good performances in parts of games, and we did very well. And some of our scoring feats in that game, and you know, in the Mavericks Park, were excellent. You know, there was superb scores and lots of positivity, even in defeat. But at the same time, I suppose the short league doesn't allow you that scope to have, you know, a bad game. You 2 bad games in a row. You have to find a win quickly. And you know, at the end of the day, it didn't work out for Sligo either. But at the end of the day, I suppose Leitrim's perspective now is they have no competitive action leading into their championship, and that's a bit of a disappointment, because it's a long gap from the Antrim game to the Sligo or Mayo game, with no competitive action, and guys, I suppose, not playing with their clubs in that period. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on there. I suppose maybe that, I don't know, would be better off playing some club games, you know, in a competitive environment, and you know, up to within 2 weeks of the game. I don't know. I don't know, Breifne, but I know at the minute it's not an easy job for anyone to remotivate and redirect the team, and you know, we just have to, you know, stand behind it and you know, give it every encouragement that it needs.
Let's talk for a second about that big gap between competitive fixtures. Antrim, of course, now almost 2 weeks ago. The Mayo game not for another 5 weeks. This weekend, we all thought that there was a clash between 4th place in our group and 3rd place in the other group in the semi-final. The fixtures came out. It was Sligo versus Antrim, not Leitrim, or Sligo versus Wexford, not Leitrim versus Wexford. We don't necessarily know the specifics as we sit here talking about why that change was made, or if that change was ever meant to be any different. Would you, in your instance, I suppose you have a feet in both camps, your son obviously plays with Sligo, do you think that's an opportunity lost if we had the opportunity to play that kind of competition game?
Well, absolutely. The way it's transpired, Breifne, I suppose Sligo have had a very, very similar campaign to Leitrim. And they're heading off to Wexford or Portlaoise to play Wexford on Sunday. And I suppose the feeling I have, you know, without having spoken to Nathan, but I think there's a bit of a kind of a chance of redemption here. You know, Sligo are going down to play Wexford in a game that they can try and resurrect something out of their season. You know, before they face Mayo, who are the second favourites for the All-Ireland probably in the championship in 2 weeks' time. But like, yeah, absolutely, it's an opportunity missed if it was, I don't know how the fixtures were drawn up or how they were done, but it's a game that I suppose, you know, Sligo have got, and I think it'll help them. It'll certainly help them heal the wounds of the Antrim and Louth games. I think from Leitrim's point of view, it would have been the very same. There's no question it would have given the lads, you know, a game at that level to bring them back into competitive action and give them momentum leading and keeping their training going. It's a long time to train a team over 6 weeks. with no games competitively, to try and keep them on on an even keel. And that's kind of where, definitely, to answer your question in a short answer, it's a game lost for Leitrim that they didn't get that game.
And they played Galway in a challenge match last weekend. We won't go into the specifics of the game, but is that the kind of caliber of opponent and the level that Leitrim need to be setting themselves at? How realistic is it to be playing a team of Galway's caliber when we haven't been able to live with Division 4 opposition?
Well, unfortunately, Breifne, I suppose that game, and we weren't at it, but I would imagine it was Galway's probably second string and guys fighting for places in the team, which probably is not a bad challenge game to get, in the sense that they're probably as competitive or more competitive than the guys who are in the first team. But that being said, Pádraig Joyce wasn't bringing down his A team to Leitrim here to play a challenge game.
The game was in Galway, actually.
Or, he wasn't going to play his A team against us, because there's no merit in that for him either. He's competing to get into division, the highest division in the country and stuff. And but there is a gap in the teams at the moment. There's no question about that. So the trade-off, I suppose, is when you're in Division 4, the difficulty of getting quality challenge matches is always a problem. Because most teams will have their challenge games booked in advance, and I know the season has been a little bit different because of the COVID, but teams will have their work and homework done in advance, and the difficulty is that you won't get the challenge games of the standard required to bring you up another level. So at the moment where we are is we're lingering at the bottom of Division 4. But as I said, Breifne, we're always one game away from, or one performance away from, changing that perspective. And I suppose, unfortunately for us this year, in Leitrim, the season now is coming to an end, when normally you'd have months and months of this preparation time. You'd have gaps between games, and you'd have 2 months or 2.5 months of league football. But it's been a short, sharp jab, and we've missed a couple of punches, and we've ended up now where we are. So I suppose, looking forward, you have to face into the Connacht semi-final. I'm not sure where that game is going to be played. Is it Marfix Park, or is it McHale Park, or is it Carrigan Shannon? I'm not sure what the draw is, but I think we played Mayo here last year. So if it was Mayo, I'd imagine we're travelling.
I believe if it's Mayo, we go to McHale Park. If it's Sligo, it'll be in Carrigan Shannon, I believe, is the draw. But,
Look, and everyone looks forward to those big championship days and the chance to perform on the big stage. So I suppose, look, you live in hope. First of all, maybe the Sligo could do a number on Mayo. But then you're looking at, if not, you're looking at heading to McHale Park to take on a Mayo team who want to win All Ireland. So, probably not a bad place to be. It's kind of a shot to nothing, really, in the championship. And if we had backed that up, with the league that we were hoping for, it would have been a great season. Would have been fine. If Terry was playing this weekend for promotion to Division 3, as we had hoped, things would have been great. The championship game would have taken less significance, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, the way it's transpired, the championship game takes on a big significance now, because we haven't performed in the league.
Aidan, if you were in the Mayo hot seat now as manager, you're looking into a quarterfinal against Sligo, potential semi-final against Leitrim. You've always got one eye on an All-Ireland semi-final or an All-Ireland final when you're in the Mayo job. But are you happy to have that caliber of opponents, like effectively in league form, 29, 30 in terms of Sligo and 31 rank in terms of Leitrim? Do you want a higher caliber of opponent, or are you happy just to get through the rounds?
I don't think it's any benefit to Mayo to be playing against teams who are in Division 4 in the championship. Certainly the gap is there. It's no benefit. James Horn's point of view is here. There's a banana skin ahead of him somewhere. And I'm sure Roscommon and Galway are rubbing their hands together in glee, because they know that Pádraig Joyce mightn't get the games in those two games. Now, look, hope springs eternal, but it's only hope. It's only hope. It's not realism at the moment. So from my own perspective, I would say James Horn is probably disappointed. He probably far prefer to have, Roscommon or Galway in the first round, and Leitrim or Sligo in a semi-final, I'd say, because at least that will get his focus and his tempo up. Injuries, we haven't a clue, and we know Aidan O'Shea is injured, but apart from that, you don't know how camps are going with injuries. Our club players, it's probably a different kettle of fish at the moment, but at the minute, county players' injuries probably on the back of the league the late training coming on. So look, I don't know Breifne, but I would say James Horan would have preferred a different path. People are saying it's a handy path to a Connacht final. It might be, but is it a path you want to be heading into play a Roscommon and a Galway who are absolutely rip-roaring mad, ready for you after a really intense semi-final? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure.
Well, we all live in hope that won't be Mayo's route to a final and that we interrupt it in the semi-final if Sligo don't get that opportunity before us. In terms of the hurlers, of course, same kind of story. Been a little bit more competitive in some of the games, but it's 3 defeats from 3. It's a fairly challenging championship draw ahead of them as well. They play Mayo as well, and also Donegal, 2 of the strongest sides in the Nicky Rackard Cup. It's just not a great time for our county teams this year, is it?
It's a very, very, very similar scenario to the football. Very, very similar. They went in with huge hope, and we all saw the way the Louth game finished up at the start, like heartbreaking stuff. To lose a game the way they did, they had it won, and to lose it, and just takes the sting out of the tail. And then Fermanagh, then I suppose an 8-point loss there kind of showed where the team was deflated, and it's hard to bounce back then in the Cavan game. But they're in a very, very similar position, Breifne. You know what I mean? They're gone through a league that they would have anticipated that have done well in. By the luck of the gods, they've ended up getting nothing out of the league, and now they're heading into a championship against teams that are above them in the rankings. Probably maybe not as extreme as maybe as I said, if Mayo beat Sligo, maybe not as extreme as that, but at the same time, Donegal and Mayo are punching at a different weight in the hurling as well. So again, I'm not sure the hurling structures, but I think there's probably another game after those games in a quarterfinal setup, I'd imagine, if it's like the Christy Ring Cup. So it'll be very similar. They'll have more games. So, but at the same time, the games, they're a learning curve, the games, but the chance of winning them are probably slim enough.
Yeah, so we'll have to hope for a big performance and maybe an off day for opponents, and hopefully we'll catch them on the hop. One side, however, who we haven't talked about yet on this week on the show, who have pretty much booked the trend at intercounty level, is our ladies football team, and they've been in action over the last few Sundays, shall we say. 3 wins, 3 big impressive wins against Ulster opposition in all instances. Antrim, a nice win there at the weekend as well, 5-9 to 111, huge score. But more importantly, we're seeing a real depth of squad with the ladies, and also some fine individual and team performances over the last few weekends.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's great to see them doing well at that level. And we spoke to Hugh Donnelly here a couple of weeks ago on the show, and it was invigorating to hear Hugh's perspective and enthusiasm for the job and for what he was about to get into at the time. He set his stall out, and he's matched his stall to date. He's set his targets, and he was very confident and very buoyant himself. And I suppose the fact that he's a throw man, we played 3 Ulster teams, maybe it fell into his lap a little bit, the opposition that we've played. But look, there's fantastic ability in that ladies team. He's harnessed enthusiasm, I suppose, that's there, and he's got it to flow for him, and that's kind of what management, I suppose, it's about. You're trying to harness that, and get everybody kind of point in one direction, and they're buoyed, and sure, a team that's buoyed, Breifne, is gonna always have a chance, and that's the point we would make about the footballers and hurlers. If you had won your games and were then the championship becomes a different animal. You're coming into the championship with maybe an inflated sense of self-belief, which is great, and that's what you need. Whereas the ladies have that, and they've earned it. And the scores in the games, they've scored 3-14, 1-18, and 5-9. Like, it's colossal stuff. They're putting massive scores on the board, and they're not conceding that much. They're not conceding, 7 points, against Derry. Like, and they're just dominating teams, which is great. And I suppose from a point of view of progression, from the ladies' point of view, Aidan Heron and co, like it's progressing. It's going the right way. And look at the rising tide lifts all the boats, Breifne. We all know this, and whatever is to be, like, good luck to the ladies, and hopefully they can achieve their targets and get their success in the Intermediate Championship they're looking for after they get promotion. Obviously, a game against Limerick is kind of a banana skin coming up for them, really, because we know they're better than Limerick. Limerick's group has been topsy-turvy. Each team has won a game. It's not nearly as definitive as Leitrim's performance in their division or in their group. So like that game is always going to be a banana skin. For them, Limerick have coming up with nothing to lose into Galway, and our girls are going down with everything to lose. So I suppose that's something that Hugh will have to manage this week and get their heads in the right place for that game. And they have been to date. So I'd imagine nothing should be different. Against Limerick.
Absolutely. We better clarify, Louth is not technically in Ulster.
No,
but they're in the northern half of the county. Because I'm sure somebody's going to make that comment to me.
Well, familiarity I'm talking about. I'm sorry. I apologise.
Absolutely.
Familiarity with the local teams.
Yeah, but in terms of the challenge ahead, of course, the semi-final against Limerick this weekend, I had the pleasure of dropping in to training during the week with Leitrim Ladies and having a chat with a few of the players. I spoke to Ailbhe Clancy of Glencar Manor Hamilton, Carla LeGuen of St. Bridget's, formerly Ahowillan. That's a brand new club that's been set up in the last 12 months. That might have escaped a lot of people's notice during the whole COVID shutdown. There's a brand new club there has formed out of Ahowillan and Aucknasheelan. It's now St. Bridget's, and Charlene Tyrell of Mohill, of course, intermediate champions in the county last year. She's back. I won't say how many years, but plenty of years after her first appearance in league final stages of competitions in a Leitrim jersey, and she's back to chat about it now in her early 30s about the whole difference in the game over that period of time. Here's what they had to say to me in Clune during the week. Carla LeGuen, it's always nice to be looking into a semi-final. It's been a good season so far. Tell us how it's gone for you.
Yeah, it's going well. Everyone's training hard and we have a good group together, so we're where we want to be. So,
what's the hope going into the game on Sunday?
Well, hopefully we win. I suppose you don't win looking for anything else. So just want to get the win and get through the final, and hopefully just get past Limerick, and then that's it.
Charlene, semi-final time in the National League. You've been past this stage before, but maybe a little bit earlier in your career. What's it like to be back here a decade later and at this stage of a championship?
It's mad. 10 years ago I was in this position, getting ready for a big game. And it's mad. I'm trying to savour every moment, these trainings building up to a big game is what it's all about, so it's exciting and for all involved, really, it's a long time coming around. I don't know where Leitrim Ladies, I wasn't really involved in any of the football in the National League final or semi-final since 2010. And there's a few of us here that was involved that year, Claire Owens and Michelle Gucking. So, it's good even chatting there before training about the memories of celebrating afterwards, and to get the excitement going in the girls, right, if we win on Sunday, we find ourselves in a final, which would be fantastic. Because we weren't shy at the beginning of the year saying, we wanted to win Division 4 and get promoted to Division 3, so we're still not shy about that.
Ailbhe Clancy, exciting times for Leitrim Ladies football, 3 wins from 3, semi-final on Sunday. You must be happy in the camp?
Yeah, we're very happy, we're going well. I suppose this was a goal that we set out at the start of the year, and we just have a couple more steps to go.
I suppose we've talked to a couple of the other girls about maybe some of the steps or the goals that they've set this year in terms of getting promotion. That's something that can be achieved in the next couple of weeks. How important is it for Leitrim to get that step and to get out of Division 4?
I think it's really important, especially if we want to go challenge for the championship as well. I definitely think that we're up higher. Division 3 could be pushing for a Division 3 title like next year, and so it's pretty confident to say, but the group that we have here, it's very competitive. I don't think it's been as competitive in the previous years I've been here, so everyone's kind of fighting for a place and pushing each other on, and it's been really good so far.
We've talked to Charlene as well about the gap over the last decade or so since she was at this stage before. In terms of your own experience, you've had plenty of opportunities to play in really good sides in a couple of different codes. You've been to World University Games, you've played in the Women's National Soccer League as well. How does this group compare to some of the other teams, the high performance squads you've been involved in?
I'd say it's pretty similar, and I suppose the closeness of the group as well is something that you wouldn't maybe experience on some other teams, but I think that we're all pretty dedicated to the cause, and we've all got the same kind of goals in mind. And the training is tough, but we enjoy it at the end of the day. And if we win Division 4, like that will kind of be the icing on the cake for us, and then push on further after that.
Tell us a bit about the squad this year, because I suppose last year was very interrupted by COVID. Championship probably didn't go the way you would have liked, more so down to the draw than anything else. What's the mood like? Because the results have been really impressive this year so far.
Yeah, the mood's good. Obviously, when everyone's training hard, and we're winning the games we want to be winning, everybody's going to be happy. So, the squad's good. It's kind of the same as last year. We haven't really much changed. So hopefully, got a better draw for a championship this year. So,
what is the goal for this year from the team's point of view?
Win the league and then championship as well. I suppose there's no point in saying anything different, because you don't go out to draw games or to finish second or that. So just do as well as we can and keep it fine.
Obviously, there's a great turnout of girls here, good squad. A few girls missing as well ahead of the weekend. But how far can this side go this year? Is a championship run, you mentioned the draw, is a championship run realistic?
I think it is, yeah. When you get a good group together and you're all training as hard as you can, why not?
In terms of the game ahead, how much do you know about Limerick? Obviously, everyone's been shut down for the best part of a year and a bit. Do you know anything about them?
No, we played them last year. It was the last game before lockdown, and it was a big victory. But you can't go off any team from last year's performances. So I personally haven't watched any of the other games, because it's very easy to get caught up in the other team and nearly overthink things and maybe get nervous, before the game. And I prefer nearly just focusing on us, really, and what we have to do and what we have to improve on for Sunday to get the victory, because we have no, shadow of a doubt that Limerick are going to come and bring everything they have. At the end of the day, there's two teams and we all want the same thing. We want to be in the league final, in a couple of weeks' time. So we know we have another battle on our hands. How do you prepare for this differently than you would have done 11 years ago? Do you know what? I actually can't even remember. We were just talking there about a team talk the night before in the dressing room. So I think nearly I didn't. You take for granted how long it takes to get to a final. Finals are scarce. And I think back then, I was 25. You don't think about things like that. You don't think about how often they come around in your career. So I think some of the young girls maybe don't realise that they could be me in 10 years' time, Talk to us about the game, because people would probably know you more so as a forward over recent seasons, but you've played in the backs a little bit in recent games. How have you found that transition?
Yeah, it's not bad. I suppose when I was playing wing forward the last few years, it's been kind of a defensive wing forward role, so it's actually easier to attack from wing back than it was from wing forward over the last year or so.
Was that a personal decision, or was that one that maybe would have been put to you? What was the reaction like when you heard that when the first suggestion came in?
I can't remember exactly. It was last year, but I'll try anything. I'll try any position just to see how it goes and to get game time. We have a lot of forwards, so a lot of strong forwards.
In terms of that, how is it like in the squad? I suppose there's plenty of Leitrim teams in all codes and all sports over the years have had that kind of expectancy that certain players know they're going to play every week. That doesn't seem to apply. You look at the quality of some of the girls who've been on the bench, and what's it like being in a squad where there was genuine competition for every single jersey on the pitch?
I think it makes training even better, because everybody's training as hard as they can, because nobody knows if they're going to be starting, or there's no guarantee for anybody on the pitch. So it makes training more competitive, and everyone's going hard every session. So
what will you do? Celebrate obviously 2 weeks to the final if you get past Limerick on Sunday?
I don't think about that just yet.
Listen, best luck on Sunday.
Thank you very much.
In terms of, I suppose, the season so far across the county for all the teams, the hurlers have struggled a little bit. The footballers things haven't gone their way, apart from maybe a cameo 20 minutes against Antrim. It seems to have been positive news out of the ladies' football camp. Why is that, do you say? What do you put that down to?
I think the club football in Leitrim as well is very competitive. I think, especially in the senior as well, I think any team could really be pushing for that championship, and the intensity of it as well. So then it kind of brings it into the training as well. And then I think as well, Hugh has brought a new kind of aspect and a new vision towards the team that has kind of pushed us on a bit more. And it's just been really good this year. I'm really enjoying it, and kind of coming back from like a few kind of small injuries and stuff from last year, it's been good to kind of like get going again, and yeah, we kind of really believe in ourselves that we can do it this year.
We did mention that experiencing other codes. There was a lovely ball, I think, from Murren's goal against Louth, and it was just a vision, that diagonal ball. You don't see it a lot anymore in Gaelic, but it was right off maybe a Galway women's session or an international soccer team session. How much does the experience in other codes bring to your game here with Leitrim?
So it does. I think maybe that the vision, like I like to think that I can, once I get the ball, I can kind of see a pass. I kind of like to get it out early, and I think tactic wise as well, because I suppose soccer will probably be a bit more tactical, so it kind of brings a different dimension than obviously playing with great players here, and then like Murren as well. I think from playing with club as well, I think we have a good understanding of each other and how we like it. So I think she dropped that ball, but I think she went around the keeper anyway, so I was
she was off the hook.
Yeah.
In terms of the club, you mentioned that you've also got the Connacht final coming up in a couple of weeks. While we have you, might as well have a chat with you about that. What's the mind frame or what's the mindset in terms of that? Because obviously you have to get yourself back up after almost 7 or 8 months since the county final or the Connacht Championship games to come back to that. What's the mood in that camp as well?
Yeah, I suppose it's weird having not played since then with the club in October. Like, we would have been going really well back then, and then for it to all be kind of shut off just the week of the Connacht final. So I suppose we're training away with that, and we're going in confident as well. But I suppose against Giva, I know they have a pretty experienced team, and they would have had a lot of former Sligo players as well. So I think it's going to be interesting, especially as we both haven't played kind of like competitive football with our clubs in a while. So yeah, I suppose we're just going to have to wait and see till next week.
Well, listen, the very, very best luck on Sunday against Limerick, and hopefully we'll be talking again ahead of a league final in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Breifne.
Well, it's, as he just said there, it's knockout football now. We don't have we can't go on and just play for 10-15 minutes spurts of good play. Like, it's, our league campaign will be all over on Sunday if we just don't show up. So, winning is, the first and foremost, but, performance as well would be great to show teams that we're not just here, by luck, that we haven't just had a handy ride of it, because I know the scoreboard, in the last 3 games has been quite a large score we won by, but that's, doesn't really represent how the games went. Like, they were tough battles. Like, we weren't handed this position of a semi-final and hopefully a final position, and meet Louth again. But, we've fought our way here and working hard, and, I think this is just the beginning nearly, of where we want to get to. I think I remember saying to you actually in one of our last chats about staying on board until we win another All-Ireland.
That you could be held to that, though. Charlene, listen, the best luck on Sunday.
Thanks a million.
We can but wish the ladies the best of luck in their clash with Limerick on Sunday afternoon, and hopefully a league final to follow after that against the winners of the other side of the draw, Carlow and Louth, of course, in action in that game too. And of course, a championship draw. As you heard, the ladies quite happy with the prospects in the championship this year, and there's a real sense of optimism, and there's a really nice vibe at the training. It's nice to see a Leitrim team who've kind of put aside all the stuff we hear about in terms of population and all the disadvantage of emigration and everything, and they're still producing it. So great to see that happening, and maybe a sign of what can be done when absolutely everybody is pulling in the right direction with that. Aidan, your own thoughts on where they might finish up this season?
Oh, I think as I said, having spoken to you and seeing the positivity around the place with the ladies, and knowing some of the quality that they have, there's no reason why they won't achieve their goals. The intermediate championship is probably a real prospect for them. I know last year they were probably hard done by the draw. They got some really, really strong teams. This year they have a real opportunity here, and I think the league, getting promotion, winning the league is going to be a huge step in that for them, because everything is positive at the moment, and they've got a massive bounce and the performances. So yeah, there's not a reason in the world why they can't go ahead and achieve their targets this year and win that intermediate championship.
Of course, speaking of targets, we all have them here with Leitrim GAA, and one of Leitrim GAA's targets this year is to fundraise and to balance the books, and one way of doing that is through the support of people like yourselves listening to this through Leitrim Supporters Club. 35 years in existence. They are having their prize draw in 10 days' time as we're recording this, over the weekend at the start of the club leagues in just 8-9 days time. So we would really appreciate if you would support Leitrim GAA and get behind the Supporters Club draw, which takes place next weekend, as I mentioned. It's €50 for a ticket, and there are 12 prizes, the top one being a fantastic prize of €5,000. But more importantly, the whole draw raises significant funding for Leitrim's county teams to prepare them and have them to the best foot forward as the season progresses. You can get all the information on LeitrimSupportersClub.ie, and don't forget to also mention which club you're with as well, so that they get their proper recognition in that respect too. Aidan, have you got your car sticker yet? Have you got it permanently emblazoned amongst all the Sligo GA ones you're probably sporting too?
Well, I don't, and it's a very funny story. The last time I set foot in Hamilton, Eamon Devaney stuck one on my car, so I don't have an option. when I'm in Leitrim, Breifne, whenever I cross the border, there's always, I like to, someone's going to stick a sticker on your car and tell you that you owe them money. So, yeah, well, that's one thing for sure. We found that out early in the year, Breifne. There's no problem with supporting Leitrim GEA at any level. There's people out there more than happy to do so, and always have been.
Yeah, I know most people have probably already got on board, but if you haven't, you still have about a week or so to get that ticket in the draw and get your supporter little car sticker and get your name in the hat for that €5,000 prize. And one of a dozen, there's plenty of opportunities to win a little something. I know there's breaks and meals and all sorts of things, jerseys, you name it, it's in the draw. Full details, LeitrimSupportersClub.ie. Now, as we wrap up talking about county football, it is, of course, time to maybe cast one eye a couple of weeks down the line to the start of the Masonite Football Leagues here in the county. Of course, 6 divisions, 1, 2, and 3, and then reserve 1, 2, and 3 for teams, second and third teams within clubs. All the fixtures came out this week. We're going to talk to Declan Bohan, Secretary of Leitrim GAA, about the fixture list and the schedule ahead for club players. And then we might have a chat with Daniel Beck about the impact within the club world of having the leagues back up and running after a gap of almost 9 months. Here's the two lads. Now, club players will be delighted this week with the announcement of the first set of fixtures of the year, and that, of course, is the Masonite Football Leagues for all our adult men's football teams. And joining us now to have a chat about the fixture list and the kind of the calendar overall over the next couple of weeks and months ahead is the Secretary of Leitrim County Board. Declan, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Breifne. It's good to be getting back into action again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very welcome email landed to most of the clubs over last weekend, and some mouth-watering ties to edge us back into a bit of competitive action. It's been a little bit too long for most people's liking.
Yes, Breifne. I would have sort of had a quick look at the calendar, if you like, as in the actual calendar, and it's hard to believe that it's over 9 months since we played our last club game in Leitrim. I mean, that's a phenomenal break, obviously forced on us and so on. So we'd obviously be very hopeful at this stage now that with vaccination programs well advanced and all that, that this is the beginning of a new era, let's call it that, you know. And with that in mind, you know, we have set out through the CCC a program of events that will encompass a certain amount of league activity. And then obviously we'll be leading into the championship later on in August in the summer, and hopefully we'll have good fare there too, you know. So I suppose one of the things we have to bear in mind, if you don't mind me saying at this stage, Breifne, is as everybody appreciates, the county senior footballers obviously have heavy duty ahead of them, with Connacht semi-finals play on the 11th of July, and the under-20s are out the Wednesday beforehand in the Connacht Championship, and we'll be very hopeful that we will have other outings in both those grades through July. And maybe one of the county teams that people might forget about, to be honest with you, because we are a football strong code, is the county hurling team. And the county hurling team, above all of the 3 county teams, is actually guaranteed to play 3 games in July. So all of that has had an impact on planning in this period and what can be available for club players. So with that in mind, the CCC has drawn up its plan. A lot of these games, it has to be said, without the service of players across those 3 teams. But you know, at the end of the day, it's all about the club at this stage in locally, and club players have got to get a piece. I hope they will be satisfied and, you know, in a non-ideal situation, I think the CCC has done a great job.
Yeah, of course, Division 1 doesn't kick in properly for 2 more weekends. So the 26th is the first round proper. There will, of course, be one early game played in the coming weekend, and that, of course, is the clash between Anaduff and Mohill. The reason for that, to create a bit of a window for that intermediate championship final that was never played at the end of last season.
Yes, Breifne, another complication obviously is thrown into a very complicated storm of events, if you like. And, you know, it's unfortunate. It was unfortunate that we didn't get our programme finished in 2020, and the knock-on effect of that is having to try to create space for those 3 finals to be played at junior level and at intermediate level, in between the short window that may lay between the cessation of county activity and the start of this year's championship. So that is, you have hit that nail on the head. The early games involving first teams are for that reason, and that reason alone, to clear out one weekend, you know, and to provide as much activity for the remaining clubs, and not to waste everybody's week just because there has to be a game played from last year. So I think, in fairness to the CCC, they've put a lot of thought into what they've done and how they've set it out. You know, if you look at, which you've alluded to earlier, if you look at the combinations of teams in the various groups, it has to be pointed out that, you know, we were due to change our league structures and championship structures in 2020, and we've never got that off the ground. It's hard to believe the decision that was taken at the end of December of 2018 may take until 2022 to become full-blown action. But so be it. That's what has happened. So the groups are based around, you know, all of the first teams playing against each other, 2 groups of 8 and a group of 7, and each team getting a minimum of 4 games in that competition. So, you know, looking at the teams as they are sort of graded, they're graded in accordance with the 2019 finishing situations and the divisions they would have been in last year had we been able to play a league. So there will be some tight puzzles in it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We did mention, of course, the situation with Anaduff's game. It's also true of Court Lettra's game. They, of course, the opponents for Anaduff in that intermediate final in a couple of weeks' time. They host Fina this weekend. So for those 4 teams in Division 1 and 2, they'll play their first games this weekend. There's a full round of fixtures in Division 3 of the Masonite League. We'll go through them quickly for this weekend's action, and that's Ahavas and Drumkieran. Esslin will host Clune, while Bornacoola and Kiltubber will do battle. Those games all on the 19th at 7 p.m. throw-ins across all 3 divisions. And then really it's the first game. We probably mightn't get much time to spend on it next week on the show, but there's some really mouth-watering clashes in Division 1 and Division 2 of that Masonite League as well. Some of them really do stand out though, and of course Aidan might have one eye on the Glencar Manor trip to Mohill. 2 sides who'll be hoping to maybe put a bit of silverware in the back pocket this year. Manor seem to be a little bit on a decline, but they'll be looking to maybe put out a statement for the year ahead against Mohill.
I suppose I was talking to Sean Boylan a couple of weeks ago. This decline has been happening for a while in Manor Hamilton and just hasn't declined yet. But I think they are coming to a transition, certainly. Some of their stalwarts have given so much service at this stage. I'm not sure how much is left in the tanks. But I suppose just to go back to Declan's point, I suppose the CCCs, and I see it here across the water in Sligo, the difficulty this season is massive, Declan. What you've had to, I suppose, endure to get competitions up and running with the county conflict. I suppose conflict is the wrong word, but the crossover with county and club at the minute, you know, it is an issue for clubs, I'd imagine, where they'd prefer to have their county players available to them in the preparatory phase, but obviously that's not feasible, especially with Leitrim's championship game. Semi-final been out in the middle of July, so I suppose from a time restriction point of view, you were never going to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, no, like the time is the key factor, you know. And I suppose when you're trying to balance fixing games and giving a meaningful program to club players, and also, you know, trying to balance that with the intercounty activity, we would be very hopeful of having a run in both football questions and obviously, and when that happens, hopefully it's going to have another knock-on effect on the scheduling going down. But to be fair to the way that county players will become available when teams at the championship, if they do before the club season concludes at league level, we'll say. So it's not going to impact the games for club players. It's just the personnel that will be available for them in those games may increase as July goes on, or may remain static. Hopefully remain static, to be fair, because we obviously want to see the footballers doing very well in both of those competitions.
Yeah, in terms of the actual competition structure, you mentioned 8 teams in that top 2 divisions, Division 1 and Division 2, 4 games each. Will the remaining 3 fixtures or 3 opponents get a chance to play each other, or is there a final stage or semi-final stage in each of these competitions, or is it just the set 4 rounds of fixtures and just play the games off?
Yeah, that's the way it's set out, Breifne, because what we really wanted to do in this was to start a competition and get it finished. So what has happened in the set out of the fixtures was the draws were done, if you like, for 7 rounds, which would be the regular competition, and it was randomized. It was done randomly, and from the point of being done randomly, the rounds 1 to 4 have been played, and rounds 5, 6, and 7 will not happen. So it's everybody obviously will not play everybody, but it should still be a meaningful competition. At the concluding stages of that, the top 2 teams in each division will contest the league final.
Okay, so it's as much as we can get in the circumstances that we find ourselves in with COVID and everything that's going on in the world at the moment. Declan, I suppose in terms of that, we'll put the fixtures out in the show later in the program. We'll be following it obviously week to week on the show here as well. Thanks very much for clarifying those couple of few bits and pieces for us, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you through the rest of the season.
Okay, thank you very much, Breifne.
Thanks, Declan. Talk to you soon.
And I wish you both the very best luck. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Declan.
Now, of course, it's all well and good talking about what's coming down from the county board's point of view, but how does that affect players in the clubs around the county? And we've decided we catch up with someone who knows the club game inside out in the county over the last few years. And that, of course, is the captain of last year's senior champions, Mohill Gaelic Football Club, GAA club, Daniel Beck, former county player, of course, well known around the county, but now plying his trade at club level within the Mohill club. Danny, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Yeah, delighted to be here again. Yeah.
Now, of course, well, it is, and of course, we're looking down the barrel of another year. Last year, very strange, worked out very well for yourselves, but now I suppose we're 8 or 10 days away from the first league game of the season against Manor Hamilton. It's a little bit of a change, though, from what you'd be used to in previous years.
Yes, it is. I suppose it's very surreal, I suppose, for everyone. But at the end of the day, it is football. We've been locked up for the last number of 8-9 months there. So I think that's probably the longest off season a lot of people are going to have had in the last 10. Well, I know myself as well. Like 10 years, probably I wouldn't have had that unless I was injured or something like that. But I know there's games coming up really, really soon. They don't really have that bite to them because you hadn't time to think about them really. You know what I mean? We're back. This is our 3rd week training. We've played games among ourselves. We're blessed with numbers, I suppose, on a Sunday, but they've been fairly competitive. There's lads taking lumps out of each other. There's lads that have been doing stuff away from home on their own. Like, so look, we're looking forward to getting a bit of competitive football.
I suppose, Danny, the question I'd ask you, and down here, I'm managing myself, and I suppose, you know, how do you find lads coming back? I'm sure Liam had you looking after yourself as well for the last couple of months, but you know, by and large, we're lucky we're injury free. How are you faring out?
I suppose the first night we went back, we had 44 out training. You know, lads were just delighted to get out, but we've got the gear sizes in now, so the numbers have dwindled. Look, like, yeah, I suppose a lot of lads have been away from sports and away from stuff, and we've picked up our niggles there now as well. We've lads tore hamstrings, we've lads that have went over on ankles, stuff that they wouldn't have done when they were off for the last 8 months and stuff like that. But look, the enthusiasm is there. We've lads out that haven't played football in could be 3-4 years, you know, and they're just delighted to be out with people. But again, like, we don't know what's around the corner, how long these lads are going to be around for, if there's flights going to be opened up. We don't know exactly who's going to be here in the summer, who's not going to be here at the minute. But no, look, enthusiasm is good. You can't fault any of the lads that way.
What have you been up to for the last? Sorry, go on in.
Sorry, no. I suppose the question, from Leitrim's point of view, or from the the club, the non-competitive leagues, I suppose a club like yourselves, Danny, that are at the top of the tree, you're probably happy enough with that, to gradually ease into the championship season. Whereas maybe a team that's newer or with a new management or whoever would prefer probably to have some competitive action. So there's probably varying scales in the county, from teams who are kind of starting afresh and a team like Mohill or maybe Manor Hamilton who are on a long path, and have been there for a long time. How do you see that kind of from your perspective?
Yeah, look, I suppose in one way the county board's hands are tied. What can they do? And in other ways, like you're looking at a player's perspective, like is there going to be much of an edge to the league? How much emphasis is clubs going to put on the league? Are they going to just, look, we'll give a few young lads a game here and get them a bit of senior football and stuff like that? What way are they going to look at it? Like we've 6 lads with the county at the minute, and then like the story was we had lads coming back last year who couldn't get into our team from the county setup, because we had progressed so well in challenges among ourselves. Like when you're blessed with numbers, we have 30. Like I can probably safely say that some of the league games are probably our games among ourselves on a Sunday are probably going to be a bit more gritty and bursting each other and a bit more fight in them because lads want to get into that 1 to 15. But look, I suppose every club has to approach every game at the weekend. Like you're not going to go out to lose, but obviously some clubs are going to say we're going to use it as a stepping board. Okay, we're going to test ourselves against Mohill now, but like, is that the true Mohill that's going to be in the championship that's going to be playing 6 weeks down the line? You know what I mean? It's hard to judge where you're at, but look, just get out and play football. I suppose it's great to be back at it.
That's the overriding feeling I'm getting as well, Danny. That the lads are just delighted to be back out playing. They're full of enthusiasm, they're full of vigor, and they're full of action like that everywhere. So it's that's right across the board everywhere. So that's good. Like,
yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's great to have that back.
In real terms, Danny, though, you touched on it there about international travel and even just national travel reopening up to people over the next couple of months. Holidays are going to come in. We're maybe not going to have that same buy-in that we had last year when people literally couldn't leave their parish. Has that been noticeable within the squad and maybe even just in the locker room talk, the dressing room conversations that are happening at training or whatever might be going on?
Yeah, look, there's been whispers already of lads, if things ease up, lads going away and stuff like that. Like that's I suppose part and parcel of it now in the summer. Like lads will get away. Obviously, Leitrim, there isn't that, I suppose, appeal for work around the place. Like, so it's always going to be there to get away to the sunshine, especially after a year where nobody's got away. So you just have to kind of mind your house. Like, I suppose last year everyone had their full hand. No one had the excuse that lads were away. Every single club had their full hand available to them. It's just, I suppose, is how you manage them. If them lads are holding back and you're telling them, you're going to stay around, and then come championship, they're not in your first 15. That's a different story. Like, that's another argument you're going to have with management. So, yeah, look, I suppose we just have to play it by what the government do. If we get restrictions lifted, I'm pretty sure lads will go.
In terms of, I suppose, the actual league, you're taking part in the first game. It's been moved to accommodate the intermediate final that wasn't played. We talked about it with Declan earlier in the show. But in terms of that game against Anaduff on Saturday week, how do Mohill approach that? Are you going in with those championship views in mind? Aidan talked on a couple of different approaches clubs might have. What's the approach from Mohill's point of view as far as you're aware?
Well, I suppose we've lads there that's going to try and get in. Like, we got a good influx of young lads there now again. They're after re-energizing the thing. Like, I'm sure they're going to want to get into the setup, and like when these county lads come back, then again, like they're going to say, "Well, I'm here now, boy. You have to move me," So, look, that's the beauty about the position Mohill are in at the minute. We have numbers, and your strength is numbers. Like, you can have 30 lads and 15 of them are competitive, but at the minute, like, we've 24, 25 lads that will be pushing for 15 positions. So yes, we're blessed in a way, but that's Liam's headache then. So he can pick the team, So, but look, it's up to the lads to get in there. When them 6 lads are away, and there's other lads that have carried knocks. Alan Armstrong has tore his hamstring, like, so. Like, it's realistically, it's start a championship he's looking at, like, to get back in, or probably missing a league or a game or two to start the championship. So that's how doors open and other lads get in and step up to the mark. you know.
I suppose, Danny, I'd see that, from my time in Hamilton, the last couple of years. I suppose maybe it's changed a little now, but that's would have been the case. We would have had a lot of lads in the county set up, and then training club was very good, and all of a sudden your panel grows, it just gets bigger because the lads at home are doing the work, and it's very hard to leave them out when the county fellas come back, and there's always that trade-off, which is a great position for a club to be in. It's strong. So you're probably, I'd say, enjoy it when you have it now at the minute, and long may it stay with you. But I suppose the cyclical thing is that changes and goes around in its own time,
Yeah, and you've seen that through the years, and I suppose even 2006 we won our first one. I was 19, and we thought that team there was probably 10 out of start and 15 were under 22, 23, and we were saying, sure, this is handy, we'll have a bag of them, and we didn't win anything then till 15, so it goes around in cycles. And I suppose even for the likes of the older lads like myself and Papa and them, it's easier to hang around when you are winning those games and winning those championships, and there's a sniff of a championship there to get another one and stuff like that. But no, look, it's a lot easier when you're in. Yeah, definitely.
I was going to ask you about that because you've seen both ends of it coming into a season as the champion. You're there to kind of people to take shots at you, and you're the scalp this season. But also it generates that interest within the club, and those youngsters coming through really know that they have to emulate a champion to get the jersey. Is the pros and cons of that? How does that work within the squad at the moment? I suppose, does it sit easy, or is it an issue kind of getting the head right for that, coming back for the campaign?
Look, as you can look at it both ways. You'd sooner people from outside Mohill trying to take a scalping at you, or rather than the county final, and like in 18 there, we didn't turn up, so then we've our own people taking scalps at us. So I'd rather the people from outside coming at us because we're winning, rather than upsetting the people at home. But look, that's why the influx of youngsters is key. Sir Alex Ferguson always said, even when he won his championships, freshen it the next year, because you can't, it's a change of mentality. It's a shift again, and it's probably up another notch in gears, So, yeah, look, we'll keep moseying on with what we have. We've some really good young lads. Just might take a bit of time to get into it, but look, them league games will be vital for those.
I suppose finally, from my point of view, just the one, I suppose, noticeable gap in the last couple of months while you've been in lockdown has been the fact that as Leitrim champions, you didn't get to represent the county in the Connacht Club Championship. Disappointed about that, or is it something that you're not really that bothered about? It was only bonus territory in the first place.
No, it's something I suppose when we went over to Castlebar that time and gave them a good run for the money, and we were really. Last year we wanted another crack at it. I think it would have been the Sligo champions, if I'm not right, wasn't it, Aidan?
That's right, yeah.
So. Yeah, and look at you've gone down there. You're not going into, we'll say, Galway or Mayo. You're going to Sligo and with a chance saying, yes, we can give these boys a good run. Nothing easy either, but look, that's where you want to test yourself,
Well, Danny, I suppose there's a lot of talk at the moment going around. I suppose with the county football, the way it's dipped, unfortunately, the last couple of games, about the standard of football in the county. And I would be one to say, having seen it firsthand, the Leitrim standard in club football and among the elite clubs is still very, very high. And I think what it takes from your perspective, and Howillans and Ballinamores and Hamilton, whoever else, there's Carrick are obviously coming now as well, for someone to break the duck. Because I remember back when I was playing football first, Howillan were contesting Connacht finals on a regular basis. They were right on the fringe of, and Ballinamore weren't far away, and younger Jets at the time. But I would see that as very important, Danny. That some club takes on this, and you're taking it on currently. Hamilton have taken it on, and Howillan have taken it on for years. Just the mantle of winning that Connacht club championship for a Leitrim club is huge. I would see that as a massive step in trying to regenerate the whole county's everything in the county.
Yeah, and I think automatically, if you get one club that'll actually break the mold and actually win that game in Connacht, the rest of the boys will follow suit, because they'll up their game saying we have to match these guys, and you see that if you look at, I'd say, the county finals in 15 and 16, I'd say 18, 19, 20, 21 have been better games because it's improving. And I do agree that last year's championship, I know Terry obviously had been in with Cavan and Leitrim, but I thought last year's championship was very good, and I thought the tempo was very good of it too, and the speed of the games was very good, and it's just a pity that I suppose everyone couldn't get in to see it, So look, different people have different mindsets, but I do think if one club does break that mantra in Connacht, the rest will follow suit.
No, I agree. And
St Mary's and Gales did get to finals as well in the mid-90s, if memory serves me right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. I was only just referring to that, just back kind of, we have been strong. There's a perception out there at the minute maybe that we're not strong. Like that's a misperception as far as I'm concerned. We do have the depth, and particularly, when there are clubs working as hard as they're working, and I know they work on the ground in every club going on, and Danny's for Mohill for years with Matt Gaffey and the likes of, and every club has had that. So it's a bit disingenuous sometimes for me to put ourselves down too easily, because I think you're right. If somebody can break the duck and just turn this thing around, it'll help the club game and develop it even more in the county.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Danny, the very best of luck to you on Saturday week in that clash against Anaduff. It kickstarts and return to club action here at senior level, or adult level at least, in the county in 9 days' time as we're recording this. So best of luck to you for the season. Hopefully we'll be seeing you in and around county final. We're not going to get ourselves in trouble by wishing you that you win it, because we'll have a couple of other people very upset with us. But
Danny, I wish you the very best of luck, Danny.
Thanks, Aidan.
Aidan doesn't live in Leitrim. He can get away with it.
He's clever.
Thanks very much, Danny. We'll chat
No
to
worries,
you.
man. All the best.
Hello, Danny.
Cheers. God bless.
Danny Beck there, of course, of Mohill. County champions last year. A medal you have yourself in the locker, Aidan? Pride of place on the mantelpiece?
Yeah, absolutely pride of place. It took a long time to get it. I think I was 30 when we won our championship against Fianna in the 1990s. But yeah, absolutely. They became a bit more plentiful around Hamilton in the years following that. But at the time, they were very, very scarce. And I think we bridged a 22-year gap at that stage, and just goes it shows the contrast, I suppose, and the difference it does make to win a county championship in the club. Hamilton had lingered for years, between senior and intermediate, and we were doing okay through the 90s, and we were developing slowly. But when you win a championship in a club, it just gives the club a completely different dynamic. The sale of the games and stuff becomes much easier. The young people want to get playing, and then Hamilton obviously came along with their onslaught in the late noughties, and it's a great place to be, winning a club championship. And I suppose I've a lot of good friends in Fianna over the years, and there's a soft spot in me. For my teammates that time, Killy McLaughlin and Porrick Flynn and the guys, and not winning their championship, and what it meant to me to win that championship was something that I can never overstate. So looking forward to the championship starting, and everyone goes out at the start of the year kind of, I suppose, with great ambitions, and people kind of say, sure, it's not that big a deal. Until you get at it, and then it's a big deal. It's a big deal. The senior championship in any championship, Breifne. You alluded there to yourself, putting yourself down that you hadn't won any championship. Every championship is important. Every championship is important. It doesn't matter what it is.
You've outed me now. That was actually off air between takes. But what I said was not that I hadn't won a championship, was that I barely played in a championship. It's very different in that respect. But thanks for outing me. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah, let's change the subject before I get even further embarrassed about my own playing history. In terms of other things that are going on with Leitrim GA at the moment, you've heard us talk about it plenty of times over the last few weeks. But of course, Win a Wedding is a fantastic promotion that's been done by the good people in Leitrim GA in association with Loughrane Castle Estate and Gardens. And it is, of course, the opportunity for you or anyone around you to win a wedding to the value of €25,000. That's 150 guests with you and your loved ones at Loughrane anytime up until 2025. So well worth getting your name in that hat as well. Almost 75-80% of the tickets already gone for that draw. It's going to be a huge fundraiser again for Leitrim. Please support it. If there's someone in your life who's recently engaged, or maybe even if there's someone who's completely single, but you want to give them the little push they need to go find that special person in their life. Aidan, you might take it and renew the vows. I know we've asked Terry and a few others. Any signs maybe you might renew the vows?
Well, every time I'm on the show, Breifne, you've brought it up every time I've been here with you. So
I'm trying to give your wife ideas.
But no, absolutely. Sure, all cutting aside, it's a fantastic prize for any young couple to get. We've all been there. And then the worry and the expense nowadays of putting on a wedding and all that kind of stuff. And, even I suppose nowadays when there's no guests coming, in the current COVID times, it'll be a great outlet to have a wedding with 150 people coming to it and fully covered. It's a great prize.
Absolutely. But check that out, winnerwedding.ie, for all the information on the prize and the venue as well. Fantastic venue, of course, well known to anyone in the county who's been in pretty much anything over the last few years. It's one of the top venues in the region. That's pretty much it for the week. The very best of luck to the ladies at the weekend. The hurlers and footballers, they have a weekend off. We're going to be taking a look over the next coming weeks at some of the underage teams taken to the field for Leitrim in championship action over the next coming weeks. I know we'll have Benny Guckian in the 20s. We'll also be chatting to the minor management in due course as those teams prepare for their own championship seasons. But it will be all about the club from next week. We're back, club action, back in force. 5 league games next week, a full slate of round of games across all divisions the week after. It feels great to be back talking about football again after so many months not. Aidan, thanks so much for joining me. Pleasure, even though you outed me. I'll get you back for that one. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Breifne.
And we'll be back next week with another show. Thanks to you then.